First, like this video, hit subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Imagine, if you will, the island of Crete, roughly 1450 BCE. The air is thick with the scent of salt and fear, a palpable dread woven into the very fabric of its advanced Bronze Age civilization, the Minoans. Deep within the earth, beneath the sprawling palace at Knossos, or so the legends say, a monstrous secret lurks, a labyrinth of such intricate design and malevolent purpose that its very name became synonymous with inescapable torment. This is not simply a decorative maze, it is a meticulously engineered prison, built, according to the Greek historian Diodorus Siculus, in his Bibliotheca Historica, by the legendary artisan Daedalus himself, at the behest of King Minos. Archaeological excavations at Knossos, notably by Sir Arthur Evans in the early 20th century, revealed a sprawling palatial complex, whose sheer scale and baffling layout, with its numerous interlocking rooms, corridors and courtyards, certainly lent credence to the mythical descriptions of a labyrinthine structure. While no physical maze, in the modern sense, has been unequivocally identified, the palace's architectural complexity, encompassing approximately 13,000 square meters, could easily feel like an unending puzzle to the uninitiated. The very notion of being blindfolded before entering such a place underscores the psychological warfare at play. For the Athenian youths, forced as tribute to Minos, their descent was not merely a physical journey into darkness, but a descent into an unknown designed to shatter their courage. These 7 youths and 7 maidens, a grim annual toll mentioned by both Plutarch and Apollodorus, represented the ultimate sacrifice, a chilling symbol of Athens' subjugation to Minoan power. Their fate, according to the myth, was to become fodder for the Minotaur, a beast with the head of a bull and the body of a man, born from the unspeakable union of Minos's wife Pasiphae and a sacred white bull. This hybrid creature, a manifestation of bestial savagery contained within human ingenuity, serves as both the labyrinth's primary occupant and its terrifying ultimate purpose. The journey into this architectural nightmare, blindfolded and stripped of all agency, was a stark reminder of the fragile line between order and chaos, civilization and barbarity in the ancient world. The whispers echoing within its walls were not just the wind, but the collective fear of a civilization held captive by myth and brute force. From the claustrophobic confines of the labyrinth, our gaze now turns to the figure whose iron will and ruthless decree condemned Athenian youth to its depths: King Minos. His very name resonates with an authority that shaped the destinies of entire city-states, a legendary ruler whose influence over the Aegean Sea was, for a period, undisputed. Minos's historical existence remains a subject of academic debate, largely due to the interwoven nature of myth and archaeological evidence, particularly regarding the Minoan civilization flourishing on Crete from roughly 2700 to 1450 BCE. For the ancient Greeks, Minos was more than a king. He was a lawgiver, a judge, and crucially, a thalassocrat, a ruler of the sea. Thucydides, in his History of the Peloponnesian War, directly attributes to Minos the achievement of suppressing piracy in the Aegean, thereby establishing Crete's naval supremacy. This naval power allowed Crete to exert considerable political and economic influence over surrounding regions, including mainland Greece, a factual basis for the mythological tribute demanded from Athens. The tribute of 7 youths and 7 maidens, a recurring motif in classical literature from Plutarch's Life of Theseus to Apollodorus's Bibliotheca, symbolically represents this dominance. It signifies not just a military conquest, but a profound cultural subjugation, where the most precious commodity, human life, was exacted as a yearly reminder of Minoan hegemony. Imagine the annual spectacle: Athenian parents forced to surrender their children, knowing their fate, powerless against the might of King Minos and his formidable fleet. This recurring sacrifice wasn't merely an act of cruelty, it was a potent political statement. It demonstrated that even powerful city-states like Athens were subordinate to Crete, that resistance was futile, and that Minos's justice, however brutal, was absolute. This era of Minoan sea power, cemented by figures like Minos, highlights a critical period in early Greek history where maritime control dictated geopolitical power, a principle that would re-emerge repeatedly throughout antiquity. The myth of the Minotaur and the labyrinth, therefore, serves not just as a thrilling legend, but as a visceral allegory for the darker facets of imperial power and the devastating cost of subjugation, deeply embedded in the historical memory of the Greek people. From the deep-seated fears evoked by architectural prisons and tyrannical kings, we now turn our attention to a more subtle, yet equally perilous threat lurking in the treacherous waters of the Mediterranean: the sirens. Imagine navigating the sun-drenched, yet often storm-battered, Aegean Sea, the rhythmic creak of the oarlocks, the vast expanse of blue. Suddenly, carried on the wind, a melody, ethereal and captivating, drifts across the waves. This was the siren's call, a sound so exquisitely beautiful, so intrinsically tied to the deepest desires of a mariner's soul, that it promised bliss, knowledge, and an end to all earthly toils. The earliest and most definitive account of the sirens appears in Homer's Odyssey, specifically in Book 12. Here, Odysseus, forewarned by the sorceress Circe, describes these beings not by physical appearance, but by their irresistible song. Modern artistic depictions often portray them as mermaid-like creatures, half woman, half fish. Yet in ancient Greek art and literature, particularly from the archaic and classical periods, they were predominantly depicted as bird women, human heads on avian bodies, often clutching musical instruments. This chthonic association, linking them to the underworld and death, is significant. Their allure wasn't just aesthetic, it was psychological, targeting the desire for solace, homecoming, or even forbidden knowledge that plagued weary sailors. Their island, often localized to the Cyrenusian islands off the coast of southern Italy, was said to be littered with the bones of their victims, a stark testimony to the lethal power of their enchantment. The danger of the sirens was profound. Unlike the monstrous Charybdis or Scylla, whose threats were overtly physical, the sirens weaponize perception and desire. They represent a primal fear, the seductive power of the unknown, the alluring promise that conceals fatal danger. Their song was not merely music, it was a psychological trap, appealing to the deepest inner longings, diverting sailors from their course and leading them inevitably to their demise on the jagged rocks surrounding their lair. This narrative element, the dangerous allure of deceptive beauty, served as a potent cautionary tale for ancient Greek mariners, navigating not only physical perils, but also the psychological challenges of long voyages, isolation, and the ever-present yearning for home. The myth of the sirens, therefore, explores the very nature of temptation and the human capacity for self-destruction when confronted with an irresistible, yet ultimately false, promise of paradise. Having explored the siren's seductive power, we now focus on the one mortal who consciously, yet safely, faced their deadly allure. Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, and the archetypal Greek hero of cunning and endurance. His harrowing journey, meticulously detailed in Homer's Odyssey, chronicles a decade-long struggle against gods, monsters, and his own human weaknesses, all driven by an unwavering, visceral craving for home, referred to by the Greeks as nostos. Odysseus's encounter with the sirens, as recounted in Book 12, is a masterclass in strategic foresight and the understanding of human psychological vulnerabilities. Forewarned by Circe, a powerful sorceress with intimate knowledge of the perils awaiting him, Odysseus devises a pragmatic yet daring plan. He instructs his crew to plug their ears with beeswax, rendering them deaf to the siren's maddening melody. For himself, however, he chooses a different, more perilous path: to hear the song, but to be bound securely to the mast of his ship. This is not an act of hubris. It is a calculated risk, born of a thirst for knowledge and a desire to confront destiny head-on, a characteristic central to the Hellenic heroic ideal. As the ship sailed past the Siren's Island, a harrowing scene unfolded. The crew, impervious to the enchanting strains, rowed with grim determination. Odysseus, however, writhed against his bonds, his face contorted in an agony of desire, begging to be released, to be allowed to steer the ship towards the captivating voices promising secrets and solace. The siren's song, in Homer's account, offered not just pleasure but knowledge, a promise to reveal all that comes to pass on the fertile earth. This aspect highlights a deeper temptation for Odysseus, the intellectual hero, beyond mere sensual delight. His journey embodies the profound Greek appreciation for oikos, the home and household, as the bedrock of identity and purpose. The relentless pursuit of this homecoming, despite divine wrath, monstrous encounters, and the insidious pull of immortal enchantresses like Calypso, underscores the paramount value placed on family, legacy, and one's rightful place in the world. Odysseus's struggle against the sirens, therefore, is not just a triumph over external temptation, but a profound testament to the anchoring power of enduring human connection against the seductive pull of distraction and oblivion. Transitioning from the siren's captivating melodies and the hero's epic struggle for home, we now descend into a realm far removed from the sunlit world of mortals, the chilling dominion of Hades. This underworld, also known as Hades, is not merely a place. It is a fundamental aspect of the ancient Greek cosmos, a stark counterpoint to the Olympian heights and the bustling human realm. Here, the gaze of its silent ruler, Hades himself, falls upon every soul, weighing their earthly deeds under the shadow of eternal judgment. Unlike the often capricious and publicly active Olympians, Hades is a figure of solemnity and grim authority, rarely leaving his subterranean kingdom. He is one of the three great gods, sharing the cosmos with his brothers Zeus, ruler of the sky, and Poseidon, lord of the seas, following their victory over the Titans. His dominion encompasses not merely the dead, but also the earth's mineral wealth and fertility, a paradox that underscores the Greek understanding of life and death as interconnected cycles. In artistic representations, Hades is often depicted with a scepter or cornucopia, sometimes accompanied by his three-headed hound, Cerberus, guarding the entrance to his realm. Unlike the Christian concept of hell, the Greek underworld was not primarily a place of torment for all, but rather the universal destination for the souls of the dead. It held various regions: the fields of Asphodel for ordinary souls, Elysium for the virtuous, and Tartarus for those who committed egregious sins against the gods. The concept of judgment, however, was central. Figures like Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, legendary lawgivers in their mortal lives, were appointed as judges of the dead. Their role was to assess a soul's actions and determine its appropriate afterlife compartment. This belief in post-mortem accountability permeated Greek society, influencing ethical conduct and legal systems. The fear of Hades's unblinking gaze, the knowledge that justice, however slow, would eventually be rendered after death, served as a powerful societal deterrent. For the ancient Greeks, death was not an oblivion, but a transition to a meticulously ordered, albeit often bleak, subterranean bureaucracy, where every action carried the chilling weight of eternal consequence, echoing the finality and solemnity that underpins so much of Greek tragic drama and philosophy. From the solemn judgment of Hades, we now turn to a tale that defies the very finality of death, a narrative of love, loss, and the transcendent power of art, the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus, son of the muse Calliope and the Thracian king Oeagrus, or in some accounts Apollo himself, possessed a gift unparalleled in Greek mythology. His lyre playing and singing were so exquisitely beautiful, they could charm wild beasts, sway trees and rivers, and even move the very rocks. His tragic odyssey into the underworld begins with the untimely death of his beloved wife Eurydice, who succumbs to a viper's bite shortly after their wedding. Overwhelmed by grief, Orpheus undertakes an unprecedented journey, choosing to confront the chilling weight of eternal judgment and the silent dominion of Hades, rather than live without her. This act alone sets him apart, as no mortal before him had voluntarily sought passage to the realm of the dead with the express purpose of retrieving a soul. His path would have led him across the river Styx, likely aided by Charon, the ferryman of the dead, past the three-headed guardian Cerberus, and deep into the perpetually twilight lands where souls awaited their fate. What allowed Orpheus to succeed, even momentarily, where all others would fail? It was his music. As he played his lyre and sang his lament, the normally impassive denizens of the underworld were moved to tears. The Furies, spirits of vengeance whose hearts were typically stone, wept. Ixion's eternally spinning wheel paused. Tantalus forgot his thirst, and the torments of Sisyphus ceased. Even Hades, the unyielding lord of the dead, and his queen Persephone, often portrayed as stern and sorrowful, were swayed by the sheer, unadulterated pathos of Orpheus's melody. This myth, meticulously recorded by Virgil in his Georgics and Ovid in his Metamorphoses, highlights the ancient Greek belief in the profound, almost divine power of music, not just as entertainment, but as an almost magical force capable of transmuting grief, defying natural law, and even moving the gods themselves. Orpheus's journey is therefore a testament to the enduring human hope that love and art can, if only for a fleeting moment, triumph over the inevitability of loss and the chilling finality of death. Moving from the underworld's emotional depths and the transformative power of art, we now ascend to confront a creature of raw, terrifying power, whose very gaze could turn flesh to stone. Medusa. Her name, derived from the Greek verb meden, meaning to protect or to rule, ironically conjures visions of ultimate vulnerability for anyone unlucky enough to meet her stare. She is perhaps the most famous of the three Gorgon sisters, Stheno and Euryale being the others, daughters of the ancient marine deities Phorcys and Ceto. Unlike her immortal sisters, Medusa alone was mortal, a detail that foreshadows her eventual demise. Her most striking and terrifying characteristic, of course, was her hair. A writhing mass of venomous snakes, each hiss a precursor to petrification. This gruesome transformation from what was once, in earlier accounts like Hesiod's Theogony, a monstrous figure born this way, to a beautiful maiden cursed by Athena, is a later development, notably detailed in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Here, Ovid recounts that Medusa was originally a priestess in Athena's temple, ravished by Poseidon. Athena, enraged by the sacrilege, transformed Medusa, punishing her by turning her beautiful hair into snakes and giving her the power to turn onlookers to stone. This Ovidian version, while offering a tragic backstory, frames Medusa not just as a monster, but as a victim of divine wrath, adding layers of complexity to her legend. Imagine stumbling upon her lair, perhaps a desolate cave or a windswept island, only to find statues, not of marble, but of twisted, terrified figures, frozen mid-scream, their faces contorted in their final moments. This is the chilling aftermath of Medusa's gaze, a permanent testament to her horrifying power. Her petrifying ability is not just a physical threat, it represents a psychological terror, the utter obliteration of agency and life into inanimate matter. The fear of Medusa taps into primal human anxieties, the fear of disfigurement, the fear of the monstrous feminine, and the ultimate fear of losing one's very being, transformed into a lifeless monument to terror. Her myth serves as a potent vehicle for exploring themes of divine justice, vengeance, and the fine line between the grotesque and the tragic, forever gripping the ancient Greek imagination and beyond. Having established the terrifying nature of Medusa's power, we now turn to the unlikely hero destined to confront her, Perseus. This young demigod, son of Zeus and Danae, was not driven by grand ambition or a thirst for glory, but by a desperate need to protect his mother from the unwanted advances of King Polydectes, who deceitfully demanded the head of Medusa as a bridal gift. This seemingly impossible task, a thinly veiled assassination attempt, cast Perseus into a narrative arc common to many Greek heroes, facing an insurmountable challenge with divine aid. Perseus's success hinges entirely on the practical assistance and divine artifacts bestowed upon him by Olympus. Athena, whose temple Medusa allegedly defiled, and Hermes, the messenger god known for his cunning, became his principal benefactors. Their gifts were not random. They were meticulously chosen to counteract Medusa's unique threat. Hermes provided an adamantine sickle, a blade strong enough to sever the Gorgon's neck, and a pair of winged sandals, enabling swift flight. Athena furnished a highly polished bronze shield, acting as a mirror. This shield was the linchpin of Perseus's strategy. It allowed him to look at Medusa indirectly, guiding his blade, while avoiding direct eye contact and thus petrification. Furthermore, he acquired a kibesis, a magical bag to safely contain Medusa's head, and Hades' helm of darkness, rendering him invisible. Imagine the tension in that final encounter. The hiss of snakes, the glint of the bronze shield reflecting the monstrous image, the cold precision of Perseus's blade. He did not charge in blindly, but with calculated movements, relying on his divine tools and a strategy of pure evasion, rather than direct confrontation. This method highlights a recurring theme in Greek heroism, that cleverness and divine favor can overcome even the most formidable, physically terrifying adversaries. The beheading of Medusa is a pivotal moment, not just for Perseus, but for Greek mythology itself. From her severed neck sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysa, the warrior with a golden sword, both significant figures in subsequent myths. For Perseus, Medusa's head itself became a weapon, used to turn Polydectes and his followers to stone, and later offered as a trophy to Athena, who affixed it to her aegis. His journey, marked by divine intervention and strategic resourcefulness, solidified his place as a hero who, through a combination of courage and inspired cunning, navigated impossible odds to fulfill his destiny and protect those he loved. Having witnessed the chilling power of Medusa and the calculated bravery of Perseus, we now shift our focus from heroic action to the profound influence of fate and divine will, often revealed through the enigmatic proclamations of ancient Greece's most powerful institutions, the oracles. Imagine standing at the temple of Apollo at Delphi, high on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, a place considered by the Greeks to be the omphalos, or navel, of the world. Here, amidst the rising vapors from a chasm, sat the Pythia, Apollo's priestess, through whom the god spoke directly to mortals. The Oracle of Delphi was not merely a local shrine, but a pan-Hellenic institution of immense political, religious, and social significance for over 1,000 years, from around 8th century BCE to 4th century CE. Rulers, generals, and common citizens alike undertook arduous pilgrimages to consult the Pythia, seeking guidance on matters of war and peace, colonization, personal health, and divine favoritism. The Pythia's utterances, often delivered in a trance-like state and interpreted by male priests, were famously ambiguous, requiring careful deciphering. This ambiguity, far from undermining the oracle's authority, often enhanced it, allowing for multiple interpretations and ensuring that the prophecy could be fulfilled in various ways, thus preserving the oracle's infallibility in the public eye. For example, Croesus, king of Lydia, asked if he should attack the Persian Empire and received the reply, "If you attack, a great empire will be destroyed." He attacked, and indeed, a great empire was destroyed, his own. The physical setting itself contributed to the oracle's mystique. Archaeological evidence at Delphi reveals ancient fault lines and natural gas emissions, leading to theories that the Pythia's trance might have been induced by hydrocarbon gases, such as ethylene, though this remains a subject of scientific debate. Regardless of the physiological mechanism, the psychological effect was profound. The journey, the elaborate rituals, and the disorienting mist of the prophetic utterance created an environment where the divine felt intimately present, guiding or ominously foreshadowing human destiny. For the ancient Greeks, these prophetic words were not mere suggestions. They often felt like inescapable decrees, shaping the lives of individuals and the fate of entire cities with their cryptic yet resonant truths. This profound belief in the oracle's authority underscores the deep-seated Greek conviction that external supernatural forces played a decisive role in human affairs, a concept central to understanding their myths and tragedies. From the cryptic pronouncements of the Pythia, we now turn to a dramatic illustration of prophetic power and the tragic consequences of defying fate, the myth of Oedipus. This narrative, immortalized in Sophocles' tragedy, Oedipus Rex, stands as a monumental exploration of destiny, free will, and the often brutal irony inherent in the quest for truth. The story begins not with Oedipus's birth, but with an oracle's chilling prophecy delivered to his parents, King Laius and Queen Jocasta of Thebes. Their son would murder his father and marry his mother. This prophecy, a classic example of doomed-from-birth narratives prevalent in Greek mythology, sets in motion a series of desperate attempts to avert fate. Laius and Jocasta, terrified, ordered their infant son to be exposed on Mount Cithaeron, his feet pierced and bound, the very act that would later give him the name Oedipus, meaning swollen foot. Yet even this extreme measure could not outwit destiny. The infant was rescued by a shepherd and raised in Corinth, unaware of his true parentage. Years later, haunted by a similar prophecy from the Delphic oracle concerning his parents in Corinth, Oedipus fled, determined to avoid the terrifying fate decreed for him. His flight inadvertently led him directly to his doom. En route to Thebes, an altercation on a narrow road resulted in him killing an old man, who was, unbeknownst to him, his biological father, Laius. Upon reaching Thebes, he famously solved the riddle of the Sphinx, a composite monster terrorizing the city, and as a reward was given the hand of the recently widowed Queen Jocasta, his true mother, in marriage. He ruled wisely for years, fathering children with Jocasta, until a plague descended upon Thebes, signaling divine displeasure. The subsequent investigation, spurred by Oedipus's relentless pursuit of the plague's cause, unraveled the horrifying truth. The burning irony lies in his unwavering dedication to uncovering the murderer of Laius and solving the city's woes, only to discover that he was the source of destruction, the very embodiment of the prophecy he so diligently tried to escape. Oedipus's blinding himself upon this revelation, tearing his eyes from a world that had shown him too much truth, is a powerful symbolic act. His story serves as a profound meditation on the limitations of human agency against the backdrop of divine fate, and the often destructive consequences of seeking knowledge that perhaps is not meant for mortal eyes. Moving beyond the tragic embrace of fate, we now turn our attention to the radiant figure of Apollo, one of the most complex and revered deities in the Greek pantheon. A god of many domains, Apollo embodies light, healing, archery, and, critically, music and the arts, often symbolized by his magnificent lyre. This instrument, capable of producing melodies of profound beauty, represents the divine inspiration that permeates all creative and intellectual human endeavors. Born on the island of Delos, a sacred site for centuries, Apollo is the son of Zeus and Leto, and twin brother to Artemis. From his early exploits, such as slaying the monstrous python at Delphi, he established his authority over prophecy and order, eventually becoming the patron of the oracle. But it is his connection to music and poetry that truly defines his influence on Greek culture. The lyre itself, traditionally said to be invented by the infant Hermes and then gifted to Apollo, became his iconic attribute. Unlike the rough, often chaotic revelry associated with Dionysus, Apollo's music was characterized by harmony, order, and intellectual refinement. It resonated with the ideals of clarity, balance, and moderation that were central to classical Greek philosophy and aesthetics. Imagine a scene at Delphi, not of the Pythia's trance, but of a Pythian games musical contest. Here, poets and musicians would compete, their performances not merely entertainment, but offerings to Apollo, seeking his divine favor and inspiration. The winners were crowned with laurel, the sacred plant of Apollo, further cementing the god's connection to artistic achievement. This divine patronage spurred unprecedented artistic and intellectual flourishing across the Greek city-states. Architects looked to Apollo for structural harmony, sculptors for idealized form, and playwrights for the eloquent expression of human drama. Early Greek musical theory, still influencing Western classical music to this day, was believed to be divinely inspired through Apollo, with concepts like the music of the spheres, attributed to his cosmic order. The radiant heat of Apollo's lyre, therefore, symbolizes more than just beautiful sound. It represents the divine spark of reason, creativity, and intellectual pursuit that illuminated ancient Greek civilization, giving form and expression to humanity's highest aspirations. While Apollo's lyre symbolizes divine inspiration and harmonious order, his personal narratives often reveal a more complex, even problematic side to Olympian power. The tale of Daphne's flight and subsequent transformation, most famously recounted by Ovid in his Metamorphoses, serves as a poignant counterpoint to Apollo's radiance, exploring themes of unwanted pursuit, natural reverence, and the primal force of metamorphosis inherent in Greek myth-making. The genesis of this plight lies in a moment of Apollo's characteristic youthful arrogance. Having slain the monstrous python, he boasted to Eros, the god of love, disparaging his archery skills. In retaliation, Eros shot Apollo with a golden arrow, sparking an irresistible desire for the nymph Daphne, daughter of the river god Peneus. Simultaneously, Eros struck Daphne with a leaden arrow, instilling in her an equally powerful aversion to love and a fervent desire to remain a virgin huntress, like Artemis. This divine intervention created an inescapable paradox. Apollo was consumed by longing, Daphne by revulsion. The pursuit was relentless. Apollo, driven by his divine passion, chased Daphne through forests and across streams. Imagine the scene. The swift, powerful god, his golden hair streaming, gaining on the fleet-footed nymph. Daphne, however, embodied the wild, untamed spirit of nature, cherishing her freedom above all else. As Apollo finally closed the distance, her strength failing, she cried out to her father, the river god, for help. Her plea was answered with instantaneous, irreversible transformation. Her skin became bark, her hair turned to leaves, her arms stretched into branches, and her feet rooted into the earth. She became the laurel tree, Laurus nobilis. This deeply symbolic transformation underscores several key aspects of Greek myth. Firstly, it highlights the often unilateral and potentially destructive nature of divine desire. Secondly, it connects the natural world, particularly the laurel tree, to a specific divine narrative. The laurel, previously just a plant, became sacred to Apollo, its leaves forever crowning victors in poetry and athletics, a perpetual reminder of his lost love and the nymph's ultimate escape. Daphne's story is a profound meditation on autonomy, the desire for freedom, and the belief that even in transformation, a spirit can find an unexpected form of self-preservation. It is a powerful example of the unseen roots of transformation, where a desperate act of preservation morphs into a timeless symbol, permanently etched into the landscape and the cultural memory of ancient Greece. From the deep emotional resonance of Daphne's transformation, we transition to perhaps the most iconic symbol of cunning and deception in ancient warfare, the Trojan horse. This colossal wooden effigy, pregnant with hidden warriors, stands as a testament to strategic brilliance and psychological warfare, forever altering the course of the Trojan War and embedding itself into the military lexicon. The tale of the Trojan horse, though not explicitly detailed in Homer's Iliad, is a cornerstone of the epic cycle, most fully narrated in Virgil's Aeneid, and touched upon by various Greek authors like Apollodorus, and the lost work summarizing the Little Iliad and Sack of Troy. After a decade of brutal, stalemated warfare outside the impregnable walls of Troy, the Achaeans, Greeks, faced demoralization and a seemingly insurmountable defense. It was the resourceful Odysseus, known for his cunning, who conceived the audacious stratagem. Under the expert craftsmanship of Epius, a massive hollow wooden horse was constructed, large enough to contain a select group of the most elite Greek warriors. Imagine the Trojans' astonishment. After 10 years of relentless siege, they awoke to find the Greek fleet seemingly vanished, leaving behind only this colossal, enigmatic wooden offering on their plain. Despite the warnings of the priest Laocoon, who famously declared, "I fear the Greeks, even when bearing gifts," and the prophetess Cassandra, whose prophecies were always disbelieved, the Trojans, convinced by the deceitful Greek Sinon, dragged the horse within their city walls. This decision was a critical psychological victory for the Achaeans, exploiting the Trojans' war weariness and their religious reverence for offerings. The creaking silence of the horse, as it was pulled through the Scaean gates, harbored not just the elite Greek soldiers, including Odysseus, Menelaus, and Achilles' son, Neoptolemus, but also the silent, impending doom of Troy. This pivotal event showcases the profound Greek understanding of deception as a legitimate and often decisive tool in warfare. The Trojan horse myth transcends a mere battle tactic. It embodies the fragility of security, the danger of misplaced trust, and the enduring power of human ingenuity to achieve victory, not through brute force, but through subtle, calculated cunning. Following the Trojan horse's insidious entry, which marked the effective end of Troy, we delve into the tragic figure whose prophetic voice could have averted the catastrophe, yet was cruelly fated to be ignored. Cassandra, daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba of Troy, Cassandra possessed the formidable gift of prophecy, a divine insight gifted to her by Apollo. Yet, this extraordinary ability was tragically yoked to an equally potent curse. No one would ever believe her predictions, rendering her warnings not just futile, but a source of profound personal anguish. The exact genesis of Cassandra's curse varies across ancient texts, but the most common rendition, found in Greek tragedies like Aeschylus's Agamemnon, attributes it to Apollo. Enamored with Cassandra, Apollo offered her the gift of prophecy in exchange for her affections. When she refused him, he could not retract the gift, but he cursed her such that her true predictions would always be met with disbelief. Thus, Cassandra became a living paradox, able to see the future with perfect clarity, yet condemned to watch helplessly as her prophecies unfolded, unable to convince a single soul, including her own family, of the impending doom. Imagine the agonizing scene at the gates of Troy. As the jubilant Trojans, weary of war, debated bringing in the colossal wooden horse, Cassandra stood screaming, tearing her hair, warning them of the armed men hidden within its belly. She foresaw the city's destruction, the slaughter of its people, and her own enslavement. Yet, her countrymen simply dismissed her as mad, a figure of scorn and ridicule. Her anguish, a bitter taste of unheeded warnings, encapsulates the deep irony of her gift. Her prophecies regarding the horse, Helen's destructive influence, and the ultimate fall of Troy were all meticulously accurate, yet each was met with increasing scorn. Cassandra's story is a profound commentary on the nature of truth, belief, and the human tendency to ignore uncomfortable facts. In a society that valued foresight and divine communication, her curse highlights the terrifying vulnerability of knowledge without credence. Her cry, unheard and unheeded, represents not just the fall of Troy, but the broader human failing of dismissing voices of truth that disrupt convenient narratives or challenge established beliefs. Her ultimate fate, enslaved by Agamemnon and later murdered, cemented her as one of the most poignant and tragic figures in Greek mythology, a symbol of prescient agony in the face of inevitable disaster. Having explored the tragic implications of unheeded warnings in the bitter end of Troy, we now journey back to the very dawn of humanity, to a primordial act of rebellion that fundamentally shaped the course of mortal existence: Prometheus's theft of fire. This pivotal myth, recounted in Hesiod's Theogony and Works and Days, as well as Aeschylus's tragedy, Prometheus Bound, represents humanity's acquisition of knowledge and technology, but at a terrible price, setting an eternal struggle between divine authority and human progress. Prometheus, a titan whose name means forethinker, was a complex figure. Unlike his aggressive titan brethren, he sided with Zeus during the Titanomachy, the war between the Titans and the Olympians. However, his compassion for nascent humanity ultimately put him at odds with the king of the gods. Before Prometheus intervened, early humans were portrayed as weak, cold, and ignorant, living in caves, prey to the elements. Zeus, having consolidated his power, intended to keep critical knowledge and technologies, particularly fire, away from mortals, seeing them as inferior and potentially rebellious. Imagine the cold, dark world of early humans, huddled for warmth, unable to cook, forge tools, or illuminate the encroaching night. Prometheus, witnessing their suffering, defied Zeus. He journeyed to the realm of the gods, stealthily stealing fire from Mount Olympus, perhaps from the forge of Hephaestus or the sun chariot of Apollo, and carried it down to humanity concealed within a hollow fennel stalk. This was not merely the physical light and heat of fire. It was symbolic of all knowledge, art, and technology, the very spark of civilization. With fire, humanity could cook food, ensuring better nutrition and health. They could forge metals, creating tools and weapons. They could light their dwellings, extending productive hours and offering protection from predators. Zeus's retribution was swift and terrible. He chained Prometheus to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains, where an eagle would daily devour his liver, which would regenerate overnight, ensuring an eternity of torment. This brutal punishment was not just for the theft itself, but for the fundamental challenge to divine authority. Prometheus's fire, therefore, represents the searing touch of stolen knowledge, a gift that elevated humanity, enabling progress and civilization, but simultaneously incurred divine wrath and eternal suffering for its benefactor. It underscores the Greek understanding of knowledge as a double-edged sword, bringing immense power and advancement, but also potentially destabilizing the established order and inviting harsh consequences from the powerful forces that would keep it constrained. Having examined Prometheus's defiant act of beneficence, we must now confront the formidable power that struck him down, the thunderous wrath of Zeus, king of the Olympians. His reaction to the theft of fire, as detailed in various ancient sources, particularly Hesiod's Works and Days, serves as the ultimate demonstration of unyielding authority and the dire consequences of challenging divine prerogative. Zeus, as the supreme ruler of the cosmos, was deeply invested in maintaining the rigid hierarchy between gods and mortals, and Prometheus's act directly undermined this established order. Zeus's retribution was multifaceted and meticulously designed to inflict maximum suffering, not just on Prometheus, but on humanity itself. The Titan's eternal torture, chained to a mountainside with his liver perpetually consumed by an eagle, is a well-known example of Olympian cruelty and the unforgiving nature of cosmic justice. However, Zeus's wrath extended beyond the benefactor to the beneficiaries of his gift, As punishment for accepting fire, Zeus commanded the creation of Pandora, the first woman. Hesiod describes her as a beautiful evil, fashioned by Hephaestus and the other gods, endowed with alluring qualities but also with deceit and curiosity. She was sent to Epimetheus, Prometheus's less forethoughtful brother, bringing with her a jar often mistranslated as a box, containing all the evils, sorrows and plagues that would afflict humanity, leaving only hope trapped inside when opened. Imagine the scene. Zeus, seated upon his throne on Mount Olympus, his brow furrowed with divine indignation, unleashing his furies. His thunder and lightning forged by the Cyclopes were not merely meteorological phenomena. They were the physical manifestation of his absolute power, capable of shaking the very foundations of the world. This absolute and often brutal exercise of power was integral to the Greek understanding of their cosmos. Zeus's unyielding authority was not solely about punishment. It was about asserting control, reminding both gods and mortals of their place in the cosmic order, and demonstrating the futility of rebellion against the divine will. The story of Zeus's wrath, therefore, encapsulates the deep-seated Greek reverence for hierarchical power, the dangers of hubris, excessive pride, and the belief that even benevolent acts of defiance against the gods would inevitably lead to severe and lasting repercussions for all involved. It fundamentally shapes the human condition within Greek mythology, defining an existence where suffering and labor are inherent, a direct consequence of a god's thunderous roar. Shifting from the monumental clash of divine authority and primordial defiance, we revisit a primal fear that manifests through monstrous form, the Gorgon's glare. While we previously touched upon Medusa's petrifying gaze in the context of Perseus's heroism, the broader implications of the Gorgon myth extend beyond a single encounter. It delves into the metallic scent of fearful transformation, the visceral terror of losing one's essence, encapsulated by a glance. The Gorgons, creatures of archaic myth, predated the Olympian pantheon in their origins, rooted deeply in the chthonic anxieties of early Greek culture. Hesiod's Theogony identifies them as daughters of Phorcys and Ceto, ancient sea deities associated with the monstrous and the primordial. There were three sisters, Stheno, Euryale, and Medusa. Critically, only Medusa was mortal, a detail that allows for her defeat, highlighting a recurring pattern in Greek myth, where even seemingly insurmountable monstrous threats can be overcome by heroic intervention, often aided by divine artifacts. The defining characteristic of any Gorgon was her terrifying appearance: serpentine hair, glaring eyes, often tusks or fangs, and sometimes even a scaly body. Their most potent weapon, however, was psychological as much as physiological. The act of looking directly at a Gorgon resulted in instant petrifaction, transformation into stone. This is not merely death. It is a horrifying cessation of being, a grotesque monument to one's final moment of terror. Imagine the metallic scent of fear, the primal adrenaline, as a warrior confronts this creature, knowing that a single misstep, a momentary lapse in focus, could render him a lifeless statue, eternally screaming in silent defiance. This transformation represented the ultimate dehumanization, the reduction of a living, breathing individual into inert matter. The fear the Gorgons inspired was profound, because it targeted the very essence of human identity and agency. In ancient Greek art, the Gorgonion, an apotropaic amulet displaying a Gorgon's head, was widely used to ward off evil, showcasing the paradox of their power. simultaneously a source of terror and a symbol of protection. This dual nature underscores the deep psychological impact of these myths. The Gorgon's glare embodies the fear of the monstrous feminine, the terror of becoming an object rather than a subject, and the primal anxiety of an uncontrollable, irreversible loss of self. It speaks volumes about the human psyche's confrontation with absolute, dehumanizing fear, where even the metallic scent of impending transformation marks a passage into terrifying permanence. From the chilling paralysis of the Gorgon's glare, we seek refuge in the calming, strategic presence of Athena, the formidable goddess of wisdom, warfare, and handicrafts. Unlike the raw, untamed power of other deities, Athena embodies calculated thought, prudent strategy, and the rational application of strength, qualities that were absolutely paramount for military and civic success in the ancient Greek world. Born from the head of Zeus, fully armed and armored, Athena's striking entrance into the Olympian pantheon immediately set her apart. She is a goddess of active intelligence, not emotional impulse. Her patronage extends beyond the battlefield to the very foundations of civilized society. She teaches weaving, shipbuilding, and agriculture, and is revered as the protector of cities, most notably Athens, which bears her name. The Parthenon, her iconic temple on the Acropolis, stands as a monumental testament to her deep integration into Athenian identity, symbolizing intellectual achievement, democratic ideals, and military prowess. Athena's wisdom is not merely theoretical, it is eminently practical and strategic. In warfare, she champions tactics, discipline, and defensive strength over brute force and bloodlust, contrasting sharply with the chaotic passion of her half-brother Ares. Her counsel to heroes like Odysseus, Perseus, and Heracles was always clear-headed, instrumental in navigating seemingly impossible challenges. For Perseus, as we recalled, her gift of the polished bronze shield was the crucial piece of equipment, allowing him to defeat Medusa by confronting the monster indirectly through reflection. This simple act highlights the core of Athena's approach: understanding the problem, identifying the weakness, and devising an intelligent solution rather than rushing headlong into danger. Imagine a general on a battlefield, not charging blindly, but meticulously planning movements, securing flanks, and using I Ching to his advantage. This is the essence of Athena's influence. She represents the triumph of logical thought over overwhelming odds, of careful preparation over reckless abandon. In a world fraught with monstrous threats and divine caprice, Athena offered a guiding hand of reason and calculated action. Her strategic thought, her meticulous planning, and her calm demeanor provided a steady, intellectual counterpoint to the often chaotic and emotionally driven events of Greek myth, providing a vital model for human ingenuity and resilience. She is the embodiment of the idea that true strength lies not just in power, but in intelligence, foresight, and the ability to think critically, even in the face of petrifying fear. From the calculated wisdom of Athena, we pivot to a cautionary tale that underscores the perilous consequences of departing from such measured judgment. The myth of Icarus. This narrative, most famously documented in Ovid's Metamorphoses, serves as a powerful allegory for the dangers of youthful exuberance, the seductive lure of hubris, and the rushing wind of overreaching ambition that can lead to catastrophic ruin. The story begins with Daedalus, the master craftsman who built the labyrinth for King Minos on Crete. Imprisoned with his son Icarus by Minos to prevent the secrets of the labyrinth from spreading, Daedalus engineered an ingenious escape. He meticulously fashioned 2 sets of wings from feathers and wax, creating humanity's first successful attempt at controlled flight. This act itself demonstrates incredible ingenuity and a profound mastery of natural principles, a testament to Daedalus's engineering genius. Imagine the father's solemn instruction to his son: "Fly a middle course, Icarus, neither too low, lest the sea spray weigh down your wings, nor too high, lest the sun melt the wax." This vital warning, repeated in nearly every ancient account, embodies the Greek concept of sophrosyne, moderation and self-control, a virtue highly prized in their philosophy. For a moment, father and son soared, 2 mythical birds reclaiming their freedom against the azure Cretan sky. But as they flew, the sheer novelty and exhilaration of flight consumed Icarus. He defied his father's admonition, his ambition overriding caution. He yearned for the sky, for proximity to the sun, a symbol of ultimate power and divine light. His ascent, powered by youthful recklessness, brought him dangerously close to the sun. The intense solar heat softened the wax holding his feathers together. Piece by piece, the feathers detached. Imagine the sudden, terrifying realization as the wings disintegrated, the once buoyant air turning into a crushing force. Icarus's joyful cries transformed into screams of terror as he plummeted from the sky, destined to drown in the sea now named the Icarian Sea in his memory. His fall is not merely a physical descent, it is a moral and philosophical one. It illustrates the profound consequences of ignoring experienced wisdom, of succumbing to unchecked ambition, and transgressing the delicate boundaries set by nature and sensible caution. The myth of Icarus serves as an enduring reminder that while human innovation can achieve extraordinary feats, it must always be tempered by prudence, lest the burning desire for greatness lead to a devastating, undeniable fall. Moving from Icarus's tragic plummet, our focus now shifts to his father, Daedalus, the brilliant inventor whose genius conceived the wings, yet whose heart was crushed by their unintended consequence. Daedalus's grief is profound, a stark exploration of how even the most ingenious creations can lead to unforeseen sorrow, and how human innovation, while capable of achieving the impossible, often carries a terrible, hidden cost. Daedalus, a figure of immense skill and intellect in Greek myth, is credited with numerous inventions, ranging from the labyrinth to articulated statues that could move realistically. He was revered and feared for his capacity to create, to push the boundaries of what was thought possible. Yet this very genius frequently entangled him in tragic circumstances. The construction of the labyrinth led directly to the Minotaur's containment and the Athenian tribute. His flight of fancy, the wings, led to his son's demise. Imagine Daedalus, soaring above the sea, turning just in time to see his son's descent, a small dark speck against the vast blue, before the splash. The agonizing silence that followed, broken only by the lapping waves, must have been deafening. He would have called out, desperately, futilely, for Icarus, but received no answer. His invention, meant to liberate them both from King Minos's prison, had instead delivered his son to a watery grave. Daedalus retrieved the body, performing the solemn burial rites on a nearby island, which he named Icaria in memory of his lost child. This act of naming stands as a permanent memorial to his grief and the tragic outcome of his hubris, or perhaps less hubris, and more the crushing weight of uncontrollable factors in the face of his own brilliant design. The myth of Daedalus and Icarus is not solely a cautionary tale about over-ambition. but also a poignant reflection on parental grief and the moral responsibility of creators. Daedalus, the master craftsman, who outsmarted kings and defied gravity, was ultimately powerless against the recklessness of youth and the indifferent forces of nature. His brilliance, instead of guaranteeing salvation, led to his deepest sorrow. This narrative powerfully underscores the ancient Greek understanding that human achievement, no matter how extraordinary, is always shadowed by the potential for loss and the burden of unintended consequences. The very act of creation, of pushing boundaries, can inflict the deepest wounds, forever etching the price of innovation and the profound weight of personal tragedy onto the landscape of myth. From the poignant grief of Daedalus and the tragic lesson of Sophrosyne, we now confront a monstrous embodiment of intractable conflict and pervasive danger, the Lernaean Hydra. This creature, a multi-headed serpent whose very essence was proliferation through destruction, represents the burning sensation of endless conflict, where every effort to subdue it only seems to bring forth a more formidable challenge. The Hydra was one of the many monstrous offspring of Typhon and Echidna, progenitors of many famous Greek mythical beasts, including Cerberus and the Chimera. It dwelt in the swamps of Lerna, a region in the Argolid known for its springs and marshes, a fitting home for a creature of such insidious vitality. Its fame primarily stems from its role as the second of the 12 labors of Heracles, a series of heroic deeds imposed upon him by King Eurystheus. According to Apollodorus's Bibliotheca, the Hydra was no ordinary serpent. It possessed at least 9 heads, though some accounts claim scores more. What made it particularly terrifying was its regenerative capacity. For every head that was severed, 2 new ones would immediately grow back, making conventional combat not just futile, but counterproductive. Imagine Heracles arriving at the polluted, reeking swamps of Lerna, seeking out this nightmare. He chops off a head, expecting victory, only to face a renewed, stronger adversary. The burning sensation of the Hydra's venom, capable of causing instant death, permeated its very breath. Even its blood was a deadly poison, a detail that assumes critical importance later in Heracles' saga. This was a battle not just against a physical beast, but against an insidious, multiplying problem, a metaphor for conflicts that escalate with every engagement. The Hydra's very nature defied simple solutions, demanding not just strength, but ingenuity. The Hydra's myth serves as a powerful allegory for the challenges that, when met with conventional force, only amplify and spread. It highlights that some problems cannot be solved by direct confrontation alone. They require strategic thinking, outside-the-box solutions, and often collaboration. For the ancient Greeks, the Hydra symbolized the persistent, often overwhelming nature of destructive forces, be they natural disasters, political corruption, or personal vices, that seemed to grow stronger the more one fought against them. It was a terrifying reminder of those intractable conflicts where every victory felt like a deepening wound, leaving a burning sensation of unresolved struggle. From the virulent persistence of the Hydra, we now turn to the unparalleled strength and indomitable spirit of Heracles, the demigod hero whose very name has become synonymous with extraordinary effort. His confrontation with the Lernaean Hydra, the second of his 12 labors, brilliantly showcases not only his immense physical might, but also the exhausting strain of Herculean resolve required to overcome truly impossible odds. Heracles, son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmen, was destined for greatness and plagued by divine jealousy, particularly from Hera. It was Hera's madness that led him to murder his own family. And as penance, the Oracle of Delphi commanded him to serve King Eurystheus of Tiryns, who then imposed the infamous 12 labors. The Hydra was a calculated challenge designed by Eurystheus, specifically chosen for its seemingly unconquerable nature, meant to humiliate and destroy Heracles. Imagine Heracles wielding his club, facing the multi-headed serpent whose venomous breath alone could kill. The initial assault was brute force, as was Heracles' wont. He chopped off a head, only for 2 more to sprout in its place. This moment epitomizes the exhausting strain, the realization that pure strength, however monumental, is insufficient against an enemy that proliferates through destruction. This was a battle against attrition, against despair, where every seemingly successful strike was a step backward. It's here that the narrative highlights the necessity of not only might, but also strategic thinking and assistance. Heracles, acknowledging his limitations, called upon his nephew and companion, Iolaus. Together, they devised a new strategy. As soon as Heracles severed a head, Iolaus would cauterize the stump with a burning torch, preventing regeneration. This coordinated effort was crucial. This methodical, grueling process, head by head, until the final immortal head was severed and buried deep beneath a rock, represents astonishing persistence and tactical adaptation. The successful defeat of the Hydra, immortalized in numerous ancient texts, including Apollodorus's Bilbos Bahama, Bibliotheca, and vase paintings, solidified not only Heracles' physical power, but also his capacity for sustained effort and unconventional solutions. It is a testament to the fact that even for a demigod, true heroism often involves not just overwhelming strength, but also the gritty, exhausting strain of resolve and the wisdom to seek aid when necessary, pushing beyond individual might to achieve a seemingly impossible victory. From the monstrous persistence of the Hydra and the Herculean effort required to vanquish it, we now turn to a prize so coveted, so imbued with power and majesty, that it launched one of the greatest expeditions in Greek myth, the Golden Fleece. This legendary artifact, shimmering with an irresistible luster, represents not just untold wealth, but divine favor, legitimate kingship, and the ultimate test of heroism, sparking a voyage into the unknown that would forever define its seekers. The narrative of the Golden Fleece is intimately tied to the story of Jason and the Argonauts, a saga extensively detailed in Apollonius of Rhodes's Argonautica. From the 3rd century BCE, building on earlier traditions, the fleece originated from the chrysomalus, a winged ram with a golden fleece sent by Nephele to rescue her children, Phrixus and Helle, from being sacrificed. Helle fell to her death during the flight, giving her name to the Hellespont, but Phrixus safely arrived in Colchis, a mythical kingdom on the eastern shore of the Black Sea. There, he sacrificed the ram to Zeus and gave the golden fleece to King Aeetes, who hung it in a sacred grove, guarded by a sleepless dragon. Imagine the sight: a fleece of pure gold, radiating light, suspended in a dark ancient grove, its brilliance a beacon of power and divine protection. For Peleus, Jason's treacherous uncle, who usurped his throne in Iolcus, the fleece was a means to achieve his own ends. An oracle had warned Peleus to beware a man with one sandal. When Jason arrived, having lost a sandal aiding Hera in disguise, Peleus seized the opportunity to send him on a seemingly suicidal quest, retrieving the Golden Fleece. This journey, therefore, became Jason's ultimate test, the only way to legitimately reclaim his birthright. The irresistible luster of the Golden Fleece wasn't merely about its material value. It symbolized immense political and religious authority, an artifact bestowed by the gods themselves. Retrieving it meant traversing perilous seas, confronting monstrous guardians, and overcoming magical obstacles, a journey demanding courage, ingenuity, and divine guidance. For the Greeks, this quest was less about the fleece itself and more about the symbolic weight it carried, the right to rule, the validation of a hero, and the triumph over impossible odds. It encapsulates humanity's eternal pursuit of legendary prizes that promise transformation, legitimacy, and an enduring legacy, drawing heroes across vast, uncharted territories towards an object of ultimate desire and power. Having established the mythic allure of the Golden Fleece, we now embark on the epic quest to acquire it, joining Jason and his band of legendary heroes on the Argo. Jason's journey, meticulously chronicled in the Argonautica, is often portrayed as the unsteady voyage of a reluctant leader, a figure whose ultimate success owes as much to divine intervention and the diverse talents of his companions as it does to his own courage. Jason, thrust into leadership by the machinations of King Peleus, was not the archetypal hero embodying overwhelming strength like Heracles or the cunning of Odysseus. Instead, his strength lay in his ability to gather and command an impressive collective of heroes, the Argonauts, for his quest. These included figures like Heracles, Orpheus, the Dioscuri, Castor and Pollux, and Atalanta, turning the Argo into a floating pantheon of Greek demigods and legendary figures. This unique composition highlights a key aspect of Greek heroism: the power of collective action and the importance of diverse skills in overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Their journey was fraught with perils, each a test of their collective resolve and ingenuity. They navigated the clashing rocks, Symplegades, two colossal cliffs that repeatedly smashed together, destroying any vessel that attempted passage. They contended with harpies, foul bird women who tormented the blind prophet Phineus, and they faced numerous hostile tribes and monstrous creatures on their extended voyage across the Aegean, the Hellespont, and into the uncharted waters of the Black Sea. Imagine the claustrophobic confines of the Argo, a single vessel carrying 50 heroes, each with their own egos and abilities, forced to cooperate under the often hesitant leadership of Jason. His success was not built on individual prowess, but on his capacity to delegate, to motivate, and to ultimately rely on the specialized talents of his companions and the occasional divine intervention from Hera, his patron goddess. Upon their arrival in Colchis, King Aeetes set Jason 3 impossible tasks: yoking fire-breathing bulls to plough a field, sowing dragon's teeth that immediately sprouted into armed warriors, and finally stealing the fleece from its sleepless guardian dragon. Jason, facing these challenges, received crucial aid from Medea, Aeetes' sorceress daughter, who fell in love with him, sealing the fate of the fleece and unleashing a tragic love story. Jason's journey, therefore, represents the nuanced complexities of leadership, where success is often a tapestry woven from personal resolve, the collective strength of a diverse team, and the often unpredictable threads of fate and divine assistance. It showcases that even a reluctant leader, when surrounded by extraordinary talent and propelled by a compelling quest, can achieve legendary feats. Transitioning from the epic voyages and magical challenges of heroic quests, we now delve into the stark, uncompromising reality of ancient Greek societal structure, specifically the formidable training regimen of Sparta, the agoge. This system, rigorous and brutal, shaped generations of Lacedaemonian citizens, instilling a gritty taste of austere discipline that forged the most feared warriors of the classical world and solidified Sparta's unique place among the Greek city-states. The agoge was not merely military training. It was a comprehensive state-sponsored education system designed to produce physically perfect, mentally resilient, and absolutely loyal Spartan citizens. Homoioi. It began at the tender age of 7, when boys were removed from their mother's care and placed into communal barracks under the supervision of a paidonomos, an official responsible for their upbringing. This early separation emphasized the primacy of the state over the family, a core tenet of Spartan ideology. Imagine a Spartan boy's typical day. Meager rations, often insufficient to satiate hunger, encouraging resourcefulness and even petty theft, if undetected, as punishment was for being caught, not for the act itself. They wore a single cloak, regardless of the season, enduring cold and heat to harden their bodies. Physical training was relentless, focusing on endurance, strength, combat skills, and pain tolerance. They walked barefoot, slept on hard reeds, and were frequently subjected to public floggings, not just as punishment, but as a test of fortitude. Plutarch, in his Life of Lycurgus, provides extensive details, highlighting the agoge's purpose: to strip away individualism and cultivate an unwavering dedication to the collective. Education also included literacy, but only to the extent necessary for military and civic duties. Intellectual curiosity beyond this was discouraged. This extreme form of cultural conditioning culminated at age 20 for full military service, and men remained in military training until 60. The agoge's success was evident on the battlefield. Spartan hoplites were renowned for their discipline, courage, and their near-invincible phalanx formation. However, this martial superiority came at a significant social cost. A rigid, conservative society that stifled innovation and personal expression. The gritty taste of austere discipline, while producing formidable warriors, also created a society perpetually reliant on its helot, state-owned serf population for its economic base, and one famously resistant to change. The agoge's legacy remains a stark example of how societal values can be meticulously inscribed onto individual lives, demonstrating the profound interplay between cultural ideals and their concrete, often harsh, implementation. From the harsh crucible of the agoge, which molded Spartan citizens into an unparalleled fighting force, emerges the figure of Leonidas, a king whose name is forever carved into the bedrock of military valor. His stand at Thermopylae, a narrow coastal pass in ancient Greece, resonates as one of history's most compelling examples of unyielding courage and strategic sacrifice, an act meticulously documented by Herodotus in his histories. In 480 BCE, at the height of the Persian Wars, King Xerxes I of Persia led an immense invasion force into Greece, estimated by Herodotus to be in the millions, though modern historians suggest a more plausible figure in the hundreds of thousands. Their goal? To subjugate all of Greece. To halt this overwhelming tide, a small Greek force, primarily 300 Spartiates, fully trained Spartan hoplites, led by their king, Leonidas, along with several thousand allied Greeks, chose to defend the strategic pass of Thermopylae, meaning hot gates. This choke point, with the sea on one side and impassable mountains on the other, negated the Persian numerical advantage. Imagine the scene: 3 days of desperate, brutal fighting. For the first 2 days, the discipline and superior armament of the Spartan phalanx held the narrow pass against wave after wave of Persian attacks. The Persians, armed primarily with bows and short spears, found their sheer numbers rendered useless in the confined space against the long spears and bronze shields of the Greeks. Reports suggest that at one point, Spartan warriors employed a tactic of feigned retreat to draw the Persians into a disorganized pursuit, then turned and annihilated their pursuers. However, the tide turned when a local Malian named Ephialtes betrayed the Greeks, revealing a mountain path that bypassed the main pass. Upon learning of this treachery, Leonidas made a strategic decision that would echo through millennia. He dismissed the bulk of the allied Greek forces, ordering them to retreat and save themselves for future battles, while he and his 300 Spartiates, alongside 700 Thespians and 400 Thebans, remained to hold the pass. This was not a mindless act of self-destruction. It was a calculated sacrifice to buy precious time for the rest of Greece to mobilize and prepare. Their final stand was iconic, a literal fight to the last man. They faced the Persian horde, knowing there was no escape, their purpose to inflict maximum damage and inspire their countrymen. The epitaph etched on a stone at Thermopylae reads, "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." Leonidas's stand, born from the rigorous discipline of the agoge, continues to resonate as a powerful symbol of duty, defiance, and the unyielding valor that can emerge when freedom itself hangs in the balance. From the unyielding valor of Leonidas and the Spartan phalanx, we transition to a different arena of Greek excellence, the Olympic Games. This ancient festival, held every 4 years at the sanctuary of Olympia in Elis, was far more than a mere sporting event. It was a profound socio-religious phenomenon that unified the often fractious Greek city-states, celebrating the sweat-soaked thrill of athletic prowess as a form of devotion to the gods. The origins of the Olympic Games are steeped in myth, with Heracles, not the famous demigod, but one of the dactyloi, mythical creatures associated with Idaean dactyls, often credited with founding them in honor of Zeus. The first recorded Olympic Games date back to 776 BCE, marked by the sole event of the Stadion race, a sprint of approximately 192 meters, which gave us the word stadium. For over 1,000 years, until their abolition in 393 CE by Emperor Theodosius III, the Games served as a central pillar of Hellenic identity. Imagine the gathering at Olympia. Pilgrims and athletes from across the Hellenic world, from as far as Greek colonies in Italy, North Africa, and the Black Sea. A sacred truce, the Ekacheria, was declared before and during the Games, ensuring safe passage for all participants. This truce underscores the religious significance of the event, placing it above political conflicts. Competitors were exclusively freeborn Greek men, emphasizing the Games as a celebration of the ideal male physique and spirit. Athletic events included foot races, wrestling, boxing, discus and javelin throws, pentathlon, and the brutal pancration, a combination of boxing and wrestling with almost no rules. Chariot racing, a spectacle of speed and danger, was also incredibly popular, though the victor was the owner of the chariot and horses, not the charioteer himself. Victors received not monetary wealth, but a simple olive wreath from the sacred olive tree near the temple of Zeus. Yet, this symbolic prize carried immense prestige. An Olympic champion brought honor not only to himself, but to his entire city-state, earning lifetime privileges, statues, and odes sung in his glory. This emphasis on glory, kleos, over material reward reflects a fundamental aspect of Greek values. The Games were a platform for demonstrating arete, excellence, virtue, and courage, through physical discipline and competitive spirit. The sweat-soaked thrill of athletic prowess at Olympia was, therefore, an expression of individual skill harmonized with communal celebration and divine reverence, a vibrant testament to the human desire for achievement and recognition within a structured, sacred context. Having witnessed the raw athletic prowess and sacred significance of the Olympic Games, we now turn our attention to the pinnacle of achievement within this revered festival, the victor's crown. This simple olive wreath, a mere circlet of wild olive leaves from the sacred grove of Altis, symbolized not material wealth, but something far more potent and deeply valued by the ancient Greeks: kleos, or undying glory. Yet this glory, for all its profound cultural weight, represented a fleeting moment, a momentary triumph that underscored the ephemeral nature of human achievement. For the ancient Greek athlete, the pursuit of victory was an existential quest. Unlike modern professional sports, there was no prize money, no lucrative endorsement deals for Olympic victors. The only tangible reward was the kotinos, the olive wreath. However, the intangible rewards were immense and permanent. An Olympic champion brought unparalleled honor to his particular polis, or city-state, and was celebrated with a hero's welcome upon his return. Statues were erected in his likeness, sometimes even in the sacred Altis itself, and poets like Pindar composed soaring odes to commemorate his deeds. These odes, elaborate poetic compositions, immortalized the victor's name and lineage, linking his achievement with divine favor and past heroic deeds. Imagine the deafening roar of the crowd in the stadium at Olympia, estimated to hold 40,000 to 45,000 spectators, as the winner of the stadium race crosses the finish line. The sudden silence, then the announcement of his name, and the solemn ceremony where the Hellenodikai, the judges, placed the simple wreath upon his brow. This was the moment of supreme recognition, the validation of years of rigorous training, discipline, and sacrifice. Yet, the very nature of such glory is that it is often momentary. The victor's crown, made of perishable leaves, was a constant, subtle reminder that even the greatest triumphs pass. After the games, new champions would emerge, and while the names of past victors were richly recorded and revered, the spotlight inevitably moved on. The myth of the victor's crown, therefore, encapsulates a profound Greek understanding of the human condition, the unending pursuit of excellence and recognition, aret and okleos, in a world where even the most spectacular achievements are ultimately transient. It speaks to the aspiration for immortality through fame, a noble pursuit for a fleeting yet intensely treasured moment of glory. It is a powerful reminder that while the struggle and the pursuit may define us, the ultimate reward, however magnificent, is always a precarious, momentary triumph, forever poised against the vast backdrop of time and change. From the ephemeral glory of the Olympic victor, we now journey to a distinctly different, yet equally central, aspect of ancient Greek culture: the symposium. This wasn't merely a drinking party, it was a ritualized social gathering, often held in the undrunskruis, men's quarters, of a private home, where the controlled consumption of wine fostered the warming embrace of philosophical discourse, poetic recitation, and refined entertainment, providing a vital counterpoint to the city-state's public life. The symposium, whose name literally translates from Greek as drinking together, flourished from the archaic period through the Hellenistic era, finding its most famous literary depiction in Plato's and Xenophon's identically titled works, Symposium. These texts offer invaluable insights into its structure and purpose. After a meal, participants, exclusively aristocratic males, occasionally joined by hetairai, or educated courtesans, would recline on couches, often arranged around the perimeter of the room. The event was presided over by a symposiarch, often chosen by lot, who regulated the amount of wine and the topics of discussion. Imagine the atmosphere, the soft glow of oil lamps, the scent of perfumes and herbs, the murmur of voices punctuated by lyre music or flute playing. Wine, typically mixed with water, was poured as a libation to the gods, particularly to Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry, and to the agathos daimon, the good spirit. The dilution of wine was crucial. Unmixed wine was considered barbaric. The ratio, often 1.3 or 1.2 wine to water, controlled the pace of intoxication, ensuring that conversation, rather than mere drunkenness, remained the primary focus. Topics ranged from ethics, politics, and metaphysics to love, music, and poetry. Plato's Symposiums, for instance, is a sustained philosophical dialogue exploring the nature of love, eros. The Symposium served several critical functions. It was a forum for intellectual exchange, cementing social bonds, educating the young, and celebrating military or athletic victories. It allowed participants to relax the rigid social hierarchies of public life, fostering a sense of camaraderie and shared inquiry. While seemingly devoted to pleasure, it was in essence a semi-formal institution for the cultivation of paideia, the ideal of Greek education and culture. The warming embrace of the Symposium's wine, therefore, was not aimed at dulling the senses, but at stimulating the mind and heart, creating an environment where philosophical discourse could flow freely, illuminating the profound connections between pleasure, wisdom, and the pursuit of truth within the refined social fabric of ancient Greece. From the enriching philosophical discourse fostered by the Symposium, we now transition to one of the most profound and enduring metaphors in Western philosophy: Plato's allegory of the cave. This thought experiment, presented in Book 7 of Plato's seminal work, Republic, is not a myth in the traditional sense of a divine narrative, but a powerful philosophical allegory that compels us to question the very nature of reality, revealing the shifting shadows of perceived truth. Plato asks us to imagine a group of prisoners who have been chained in a cave since birth. They face a blank wall and cannot turn their heads. Behind them, a fire burns, and between the fire and the prisoners, puppeteers hold up objects, casting shadows on the wall before them. These shadows are the only reality the prisoners have ever known. They believe these fleeting, two-dimensional projections are the true objects. Their conversations, their entire world, revolve around these dim, distorted images. Imagine the sudden, disorienting experience of a prisoner freed from these chains. He is forced to turn around, to gaze at the fire, which initially blinds him with its intensity. Then, staggering out of the cave, he is confronted by the dazzling light of the sun and the true three-dimensional objects of the outside world. This journey from darkness to light, from illusion to reality, is both painful and revelatory. The freed prisoner would slowly adjust, learning to distinguish between the shadows of the cave and the forms, or true essences, of things in the upper world. The light of the sun itself represents the ultimate form, the good. The allegory serves as a powerful metaphor for the philosophical journey from ignorance to enlightenment. The prisoners represent humanity trapped in a world of sensory perception, mistaking appearances for reality. The shadows are the deceptive data gathered through our senses. The fire is a mere reflection of the greater light of truth. The freed prisoner represents the philosopher, who, through rigorous intellectual inquiry and rational thought, ascends to a higher understanding of reality. This ascent is difficult, and the philosopher, upon returning to the cave to enlighten his former companions, would likely be met with disbelief, ridicule, and even hostility, as the prisoners prefer the comfort and familiarity of their perceived reality to the harsh truth. Plato's cave thus challenges us to critically examine our assumptions, to question the sources of our knowledge, and to embark on our own search for deeper, more illuminated truths beyond the shifting shadows of our perceived reality. It profoundly illustrates the challenges of education, the resistance to new ideas, and the eternal quest for genuine understanding. From the abstract philosophical landscape of Plato's cave, we return to a tangible, enduring monument to Greek civilization, the Acropolis of Athens. This monumental rocky outcrop, rising dramatically above the city, is more than just a collection of ancient ruins. It is a symbol of human aspiration, artistic perfection, and democratic ideals. Its weathered stone bearing the texture of enduring grandeur that has inspired millennia. The term Acropolis literally translates to upper city or citadel, and almost every Greek city possessed one. However, the Acropolis of Athens is the Acropolis, a unique fusion of natural defense and architectural marvel. Its strategic importance was recognized from prehistoric times, inhabited continuously since the Neolithic period. By the Mycenaean era, the 1600, 1100 BCE, it was a fortified citadel, a royal residence, and a sacred precinct. By the classical period, particularly the 5th century BCE, under the leadership of Pericles, it was transformed into the magnificent complex we recognize today, largely dedicated to the goddess Athena, the city's patron deity. Imagine standing on the lower slopes, gazing up at the Propylaea, the monumental gateway designed by Mnesicles, its massive pentelic marble columns gleaming in the Athenian sun. Beyond it, the Parthenon, the crown jewel, rises majestically, a Doric temple of unparalleled beauty and sophistication, dedicated to Athena Parthenos, Athena the Virgin. Built between 447 and 432 BCE by the architects Ictinus and Callicrates, under the artistic direction of Phidias, its construction involved astronomical sums and revolutionary architectural techniques, including subtle optical illusions, such as entasis, the slight swelling in column shafts, to make straight lines appear perfectly straight to the human eye. Flanking it are the smaller, elegant erechtheion, with its iconic caryatid porch, and the tiny, graceful temple of Athena Nike. These structures, though ravaged by time, war, and pollution, continue to embody the zenith of classical Greek architecture and sculpture. The weathered texture of the Acropolis's stone tells a story of cultural resilience. Rebuilt after Persian destruction in 480 BCE, transformed through centuries, and now undergoing meticulous restoration, it represents a living testament to Athenian sophrosin, moderation, and kalokagathia, the ideal of moral and physical excellence. The enduring grandeur of the Acropolis is not just in its physical presence, but in its unwavering message that human intellect, artistic vision, and democratic spirit can achieve monumental and timeless expressions, inspiring awe and contemplation across diverse cultures and countless generations. Standing amidst the enduring grandeur of the Acropolis, we are reminded of the visionary leadership that propelled Athens to its golden age. Central to this monumental achievement was Pericles, the Athenian statesman and general whose strategic foresight and democratic idealism reshaped his city and left an indelible mark on Western civilization. His era, roughly from 461 to 429 BCE, is synonymous with the aspirational heights of Athenian democracy and its cultural zenith. Pericles was not merely a politician. He was a profound intellectual and an orator of remarkable power, as evidenced by Thucydides' transcription of his famous funeral oration. This speech, delivered during the Peloponnesian War, articulates a democratic ideal that valued individual freedom, civic participation, and equality before the law, emphasizing that our constitution is called a democracy because power is in the hands not of a minority, but of the whole people. This was a revolutionary concept in a world largely dominated by oligarchies and tyrannies. Imagine Pericles, a figure of dignified bearing and intellectual gravitas, addressing the Athenian assembly. His vision extended beyond political theory to tangible expressions of civic pride. After the Persian Wars, much of Athens lay in ruins. Pericles initiated an ambitious rebuilding program, utilizing funds from the Delian League, an alliance of Greek city-states ostensibly formed to defend against Persia, to adorn Athens with magnificent structures like the Parthenon. This was not merely reconstruction. It was a deliberate articulation of Athenian power, piety, and artistic genius. The goal was to make Athens the school of Hellas, a beacon of culture and intellectual enlightenment for the entire Greek world. This project provided employment, stimulated the economy, and solidified Athens' position as a cultural hegemon. The immense cost sparked controversy, with critics arguing the funds should be reserved for military defense. Yet, Pericles argued that the artistic and architectural splendor would create an eternal monument to Athenian greatness, fostering unity and inspiring its citizens. His vision encompassed both the practical demands of governance and the philosophical underpinnings of an ideal society, one where military strength, democratic values, and artistic excellence converged. Pericles' legacy is the enduring testament to the aspirating heights of democratic idealism, demonstrating that through bold leadership and a commitment to shared values, a society can reach unparalleled levels of cultural and political sophistication, leaving monumental works and profound ideas that continue to shape our understanding of civilization. From the aspirational heights of democratic idealism embodied by Pericles' Athens, we now descend into a darker, more primal aspect of the Greek psyche, the chilling pursuit of the Furies. These ancient, vengeful goddesses represent the inescapable consequence of blood guilt, the relentless inner torment that follows grave transgressions against family and moral law. Their very breath a palpable embodiment of unforgiving dread. Known as the Erinyes in Greek myth, these formidable deities emerged from the blood of Uranus when he was castrated by his son Cronus, making them older than the Olympian gods and representing a more ancient, chthonic form of justice. Their primary role was to punish those guilty of patricide, matricide, fratricide, or breaking sacred oaths, particularly acts of violence within the family unit. They were depicted as terrifying figures with bat-like wings, clad in black, with serpents entwined in their hair, and often carrying torches to light their prey's path to madness and whips to lash them. Their abode was the underworld, but their mission brought them relentlessly into the mortal realm. Imagine a transgressor, fresh from committing a heinous act against kin. Suddenly, unseen by others, a chilling breath descends, a whisper of dread that grows into a tangible presence. The Furies do not kill. Their torment is psychological, driving their victims to madness and despair. making their lives a living hell. The most famous example of their relentless pursuit is in Aeschylus's Oresteia, the only surviving ancient Greek trilogy. Following Orestes' matricide to avenge his father Agamemnon, who was murdered by Clytemnestra, Orestes' mother, the Furies relentlessly hound him across Greece. Their presence is a pervasive internal dread, a suffocating sense of guilt that mirrors their external manifestation. They represent the internal psychological weight of an unexpiated crime, a haunting that gnaws at the soul, offering no solace, no escape. This myth vividly illustrates the Greek concept of miasma, a spiritual pollution that attaches to those who commit certain heinous crimes, particularly against kin, and which could infect an entire community. The Furies' pursuit serves as a powerful reminder that some moral transgressions are so fundamental that they evoke an ancient, inexorable form of justice, highlighting the deep-seated societal anxieties about family honor, divine retribution, and the profound, chilling breath of unrelenting guilt that haunts the conscience of humanity. Their story culminates in a transformative trial at the Areopagus in Athens, illustrating the evolution from archaic vengeance to a more structured civic justice system, yet never fully erasing the primal fear they represent. Having felt the chilling breath of the Furies' pursuit, we turn to the figure who bore the brunt of their relentless justice, Orestes. His plight, central to Aeschylus's Oresteia trilogy, illustrates the heavy, often agonizing price of familial retribution, a cycle of violence that threatened to consume entire bloodlines and tested the very foundations of justice in the ancient Greek world. Orestes was the son of Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae, and commander of the Achaean forces during the Trojan War. His burden began even before his birth, rooted in the cursed house of Atreus, a lineage steeped in infanticide, incest, and betrayal. Upon Agamemnon's return from Troy, he was brutally murdered by his wife Clytemnestra and her lover Aegisthus, an act of vengeance for Agamemnon's sacrifice of their daughter Iphigenia. This set the stage for Orestes' terrible dilemma. Under archaic Greek law and moral code, he was honor-bound to avenge his father's death. However, such an act would entail matricide, a transgression so heinous it was believed to unleash the wrath of the Furies. Imagine Orestes wrestling with this impossible choice. He was commanded by Apollo himself, through the oracle at Delphi, to avenge his father, ensuring divine sanction for the act. But the moment his blade struck his mother, the Furies, ancient embodiments of blood vengeance, rose from the underworld, their horrifying presence a constant, maddening torment. He fled, driven to the brink of insanity, relentlessly pursued across Greece, finding no sanctuary from their chilling breath. This internal and external torment highlights the profound tension between different forms of justice. The heroic code of avenging a slain patriarch versus the primal, chthonic laws against matricide. The culmination of Orestes' suffering and the resolution of the Oresteia marks a pivotal moment in Greek thought. Orestes eventually found refuge in Athens, where he stood trial before a jury of Athenian citizens on the Areopagus, presided over by Athena herself. Apollo argued for Orestes, emphasizing the supremacy of paternal lineage and divine command, while the Furies passionately championed the inviolability of maternal bonds and their ancient right to vengeance. Athena, casting the deciding vote to break the cycle of blood feuds, acquitted Orestes. The Furies were appeased and transformed into the Eumenides, the kindly ones, revered protectors of Athens. Orestes' burden, therefore, transcends a simple tale of vengeance. It illustrates the heavy price paid for upholding family honor, the agonizing choices forced upon individuals by fate and divine decree, and ultimately, the evolution of human justice from raw tribal retribution to the reasoned civic justice of an emerging democratic society. His story is a poignant exploration of guilt, atonement, and the profound, often tragic cost of inheriting a cycle of violence. Emerging from the complex legal and ethical dilemmas of Orestes' trial, we now encounter a different kind of confrontation, one of intellect and life or death decision-making, epitomized by the Sphinx's riddle. This myth, deeply embedded in the Theban cycle and famously solved by Oedipus, symbolizes the terrifying power of an unanswerable question, the puzzling silence before a deadly choice, where the stakes are not just one's own life, but the fate of an entire city. The Sphinx was a monstrous creature, a hybrid of lion, woman, and bird, usually depicted with the body of a lion, the head of a human woman, and the wings of an eagle. Born of Typhon and Echidna, making her a sister to the Linnaean Hydra and Cerberus, she embodied chaos and destruction. Sent by Hera or Ares to punish the city of Thebes, she perched on a high rock near the city gates, accosting all who passed. To each traveller she posed a riddle. What walks on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet at noon, and 3 feet in the evening? Failure to answer correctly resulted in instant death, as the Sphinx would devour the unfortunate challenger. Imagine the chilling atmosphere around Thebes, the fear, the desperation, as countless citizens and travellers met their grisly end. The city was under siege, not by an army, but by an intellectual blockade, its people starving, terrified to leave or enter. The silence at the Sphinx's rock must have been palpable, broken only by the monster's predatory purr and the panicked breaths of her victims. This was a test of mind over brute strength, a challenge to human reason itself. The enigma she presented was seemingly simple, yet its answer required a unique blend of insight, understanding of the human condition, and literal interpretation. The Sphinx's riddle thus represents a powerful form of psychological warfare. It was a test of intellectual arete, challenging the very capacity for rational thought that defined Greek philosophy. The moment of decision before the Sphinx, the puzzling silence after the question was posed, presented a deadly choice. Either solve it and live, or fail and die, condemning not just oneself, but prolonging the suffering of Thebes. This episode profoundly underscores the Greek valorization of intellect and cunning as equivalent, if not superior, to physical prowess. It highlights the belief that wisdom and insight could overcome even the most terrifying monstrous threats, offering a powerful narrative of human reason triumphing over primordial chaos and fear. Following the perilous confrontation with the Sphinx's riddle, we shift our perspective to the grim reality endured by the inhabitants of Thebes during this period of terror. Before Oedipus's arrival, the city was enveloped in a profound despair, a collective sigh of agony under the relentless predation of the Sphinx. This state of prolonged suffering highlights the critical concept of miasma, or ritual pollution, that could afflict an entire community in ancient Greece, showcasing the interconnectedness of individual fate and societal well-being. The Sphinx, a monstrous entity sent by the gods as punishment, in some accounts for a crime committed by Laius, the former king, had effectively laid siege to the city from its perch on Mount Fictium. Every traveller, every messenger, every merchant who dared approach or depart Thebes faced her deadly challenge. Those who failed were devoured, their bodies left as grim warnings. The city was cut off, its trade routes severed, its food supplies dwindling. The atmosphere within the walls of Thebes would have been one of pervasive fear, starvation, and hopelessness. Death was a constant, terrifying possibility for anyone venturing outside, leading to a stifling paralysis. Imagine the daily life in Thebes, the quiet desperation of families, the empty marketplaces, the hushed conversations, and the desperate prayers to gods who seem to have abandoned them. The loss of their king, Laius, and the unresolved mystery surrounding his death only compounded their suffering. The miasma that clung to the city was not merely a physical sickness, but a spiritual and moral blight, believed to be the root cause of their misfortunes. This belief system underscores the close relationship the Greeks felt they had with their gods. Divine displeasure was a tangible force that could devastate an entire community. The Theban rulers, desperate for a solution, offered the throne of Thebes and the hand of the recently widowed Queen Jocasta to anyone who could defeat the Sphinx. This offer itself speaks volumes about the depth of their despair. They were willing to surrender the highest power to a stranger, a testament to their utter inability to solve the crisis themselves. It was into this atmosphere of collective agony that Oedipus arrived, his intellectual prowess ultimately breaking the Sphinx's hold and lifting the curse. However, his triumph, while ending the immediate crisis, inadvertently set the stage for an even greater tragedy, revealing the layered nature of suffering and the insidious ways in which ancient curses could manifest. The Theban despair, therefore, was not merely a backdrop for a hero's tale, but a palpable state of societal anguish, a vivid testament to the profound impact of divine punishment and monstrous threats on the very soul of a city. Moving beyond the intellectual puzzles and urban agonies of the Sphinx and Thebes, we now journey to the ultimate frontier of mortal existence, the liminal passage to the Greek underworld. Here, all souls converge upon a dark, unyielding river, the Styx, where the grim ferryman Charon awaits. This cold, still water serves as the definitive boundary between life and death, an inescapable crossing into the realm of Hades that all must undertake. The river Styx, whose name derives from the Greek word stigein, meaning to hate or to abhor, was not just a geographical feature of the underworld. It was a primordial deity itself, a daughter of Oceanus and Tethys. Her waters were held sacred by the gods, who swore their most unbreakable oaths upon her name, a testament to her profound power and ancient lineage. The act of swearing by the Styx meant that the oath was inviolable, even for the most powerful Olympians. Imagine the freshly departed soul, a mere shade, its earthly life violently severed. It stands on the desolate banks of the Styx, a spectral landscape shrouded in perpetual twilight, a chilling mist clinging to the cold, still water. There, an old grizzled figure appears, Charon, the ferryman, depicted in ancient art as a gaunt old man with a tattered cloak and a long pole. He is the psychopomp, the guide of souls. His duty is singular and unwavering, to transport the dead across the Styx into the true realm of Hades. But this passage is not free. Ancient Greek funerary practices, meticulously documented through archaeological findings and literary accounts, reveal the critical role of the obol, a small coin routinely placed under the tongue or on the eyes of the deceased. This coin was Charon's fare. Without it, a soul would be condemned to wander the near bank of the Styx for 100 years, unable to find rest, forever yearning for passage. This belief underscores the profound importance of proper burial rites and the practical reality of death as understood by the Greeks. The cold, still water of the Styx, therefore, is more than a river. It is a symbol of absolute finality, an impartial barrier that separates the living from the dead, the transient world from the eternal. Charon, its gatekeeper, is a potent figure representing the inexorable nature of death and the rituals surrounding it. This journey across the Styx, paid for by a small coin, signifies not just the ending of life, but the beginning of the soul's true judgment and its passage into an afterlife dictated by the cosmic order, profoundly shaping the Greek understanding of mortality and the afterlife. Having navigated the chilling final passage across the Styx with Charon, we now seek a glimpse of the most sought-after destination within the Greek underworld, Elysium. In contrast to the often bleak landscape of Hades, Elysium, or the Elysian Fields, offers a faint scent of eternal peace, a blissful afterlife reserved for heroes, the virtuous, and those beloved by the gods. It stands as a beacon of hope, a pastoral paradise for the most favored souls. The concept of Elysium evolved over time within Greek mythology. In Homer's Odyssey, it is described as a distant western land, a place of peace and beauty, where heroes like Menelaus were sent by the gods, not for their piety, but for their divine connections. Later traditions, particularly in the works of Pindar and Virgil, developed Elysium into a more structured afterlife. It became the final resting place for souls who had lived exceptionally righteous or heroic lives, often after having been judged by figures like Rhadamanthus. Imagine this idyllic landscape within the underworld. Perpetual spring, sun-drenched meadows, gentle breezes carrying the faint scent of blooming asphodel and myrtle. Here, the shades of the blessed resided, engaging in their favorite earthly pastimes, philosophical discourse, athletic contests, feasting, and the playing of music, all without pain, suffering, or the burdens of mortal life. Famous inhabitants of Elysium include Achilles, Ajax, in some accounts, Cadmus, and Harmonia. It was a place of serene contentment, a paradise reflecting the highest Greek ideals of a fulfilled and meaningful existence. Critically, access to Elysium was not merely granted by good behavior. Divine favor played a significant role. Heroes often gained entry due to their semi-divine parentage or direct intervention from the gods. However, the Eleusinian Mysteries, a secret religious cult centered in Eleusis, promised initiates a blessed afterlife, suggesting that participation in certain religious rites could also pave the way to Elysium, democratizing the path to paradise beyond mere heroic deeds or divine lineage. This evolving concept reflects a shift in societal values, offering wider access to a blissful afterlife through piety and ritual. Elysium's promise, therefore, offered a powerful counter-narrative to the generally gloomy prospect of the Greek underworld. It was the ultimate reward, a testament to the idea that a life lived with virtue, courage, or divine grace could culminate in an afterlife of eternal peace and happiness, a faint yet deeply comforting scent of tranquil bliss in the face of mortality's inevitability. Emerging from the serene yet shadowy paths of Elysium, we ascend to a realm of pure effulgence and power, Mount Olympus, the celestial home of the gods. Here, amidst the clouds, the Olympian feast unfolds, a spectacle of divine indulgence, where the rich aroma of ambrosia and nectar mingles with laughter, revelry, and the dramatic interplay of cosmic power and familial squabbles. This regular gathering was not just a meal. It was a potent symbol of divine authority, hierarchy, and the sheer vibrancy of the Greek pantheon. Mount Olympus, the highest peak in Greece, rising to 2,917 meters, 9,570 feet, was a physical location imbued with profound mythical significance, protected by the Horae, seasons, who guarded its cloudy gates. It was a realm entirely separate from the mortal world, untouched by wind, rain, or snow. The gods resided in magnificent palaces, each a masterpiece of divine craftsmanship, often depicted as gleaming with gold and precious stones. Their gatherings, the Olympian feasts, were central to their existence, a time for council, pronouncements, and celebration. Imagine the lavish scene, the gods reclining on golden couches, served by the graceful Hebe and Ganymede. Their diet was unique, ambrosia, the food of the gods, imparting immortality and divine strength, and nectar, their drink, flowing like fine wine. Homeric descriptions in the Iliad and Odyssey paint vivid pictures of these feasts, where serious matters of cosmic order and human fate were often interspersed with light-hearted banter, divine flirtations, and occasional explosive arguments. Here, Zeus, wielding his thunderbolt, presided, his authority challenged but ultimately upheld. Hera, his perpetually jealous queen, often plotted against his extramarital affairs. Apollo played his lyre, the muses sang, and Hephaestus, the smith god, crafted wondrous objects. The Olympian feast, therefore, is more than just a description of divine dining. It is a ritualistic affirmation of the gods' power and their interconnectedness. It highlights their anthropomorphic nature, their very human-like passions, flaws and rivalries, played out on a cosmic stage. The rich aroma of divine indulgence, the taste of immortality, serves as a constant reminder of their elevated status, their eternal youth, and their detachment from mortal suffering. These feasts were the stage where divine drama unfolded, decisions affecting mortals were made, and the intricate web of relationships that governed the Greek cosmos was continuously spun and respun, creating a vibrant, often volatile picture of divine life. From the vibrant, often tumultuous spectacles of the Olympian feast, we descend from the mythical peaks to reflect on its profound impact on the human realm. The rich tapestry of ancient Greek myths, whether chronicling heroic deeds, divine interventions, or tragic downfalls, offers not just enthralling narratives, but an enduring resonance of mythological truths that continue to echo through human culture, psychology, and philosophy to this day. These myths were far more than mere entertainment for the ancient Greeks. They served as foundational frameworks for understanding the cosmos, explaining natural phenomena, articulating moral principles, and grappling with the complexities of human existence. The stories of Prometheus's fire illuminated the double-edged sword of knowledge and civilization. The trials of Sisyphus and Tantalus offered stark lessons on hubris and eternal punishment. The choices of Oedipus explored the agonizing interplay of fate and free will. Through these narratives, the Greeks established archetypes, universal patterns of behavior and experience that resonate across cultures and time. From the hero's journey to the femme fatale, from the wise mentor to the trickster god, these figures remain etched into our collective consciousness. Consider the enduring influence. Psychologists like Carl Jung utilize these myths to define concepts such as the collective unconscious and Jungian archetypes, demonstrating their deep-seated presence in the human psyche. Literary criticism constantly references Greek mythological structures and themes, finding their echoes in modern novels, films, and plays. The very language we speak is peppered with these truths. A Herculean effort, and Achilles' heel, or opening Pandora's box, are all direct descendants of these ancient narratives. These references are not simply historical curiosities, they are linguistic shorthand, imbued with layers of meaning and universally understood because the core truths they embody remain relevant. The enduring resonance of mythological truths lies in their capacity to explore fundamental human questions. The nature of good and evil, the pursuit of love and vengeance, the inevitability of death, the struggle against overwhelming odds, and the search for meaning in a chaotic world. They provide cultural glue, offering shared stories that foster a sense of identity and common understanding. Even as science provides explanations for natural phenomena once attributed to divine caprice, the psychological, ethical, and existential insights embedded in these myths continue to offer profound wisdom. They are humanity's echo, a testament to the timeless power of storytelling to capture essential truths about ourselves, our societies, and our place in the vast, often mysterious universe.